Every Saturday night, a few minutes before 12, I climb the 11 steps to a little room above the balcony and wake two machines older than my grandfather. They are film projectors, the last working pair in our corner of western Massachusetts, and they live in the booth of a single-screen theater called the Vesper. The Vesper opened in 1936, and it never grew a second screen, never split its balcony into little rooms, never gave up its long red curtain. 6 nights a week, we show whatever the distributor sends off a hard drive through a quiet grey machine that needs me for almost nothing. But at midnight on Saturday, we run real film, from reels that come up out of the basement in steel, cans with the titles taped to the lids. You can tell the age of a print with your eyes closed, just by the sound it makes going through the gate. The oldest ones sound like rain on a tin roof, which is its own kind of music if you let it be. I took this job 6 years ago, the summer Mr. Ambrose retired after 51 years in the booth. He taught me to thread the machines, to feel a splice coming, and to make the changeover between projectors so smooth that nobody below ever feels the seam. On his last night, he handed me a green cloth notebook with a rubber band around it and said the booth came with homework. Most of the notebook is practical. Which switch sticks, which fuse goes in a heat wave, how to quiet the furnace in January. Page 1 is different. Page 1 says, in ink gone brown at the edges, keep C7 empty on film nights. Underneath, in newer ink, he had added, sell around it, never through it, and do not make a story of it for the customers. When I asked him about it, he looked at me the way you look at someone who asks why you water a plant. C7 is the 7th seat from the aisle in the 3rd row, center section, just left of the middle of the screen. The ushers already knew, and the ticket computer has it marked as broken, though there is nothing wrong with it. It is simply never sold and never sat in, and on film nights I make sure it is folded shut before the doors open. The midnight crowd is night workers, students, and people who cannot sleep, and they file in slow and settle deep. From the booth, through the little port window beside the projector, I can see the whole house. During the quiet scenes, I count heads, a habit I caught from Mr. Ambrose, who liked his numbers to agree with the till. Most nights, with a bright print from the 70s or a new restoration, the count matches the tickets. But some Saturdays, the can that comes up from the basement is older than that. Black and white, scratched at every reel change, the voices are half step lower than they should be. Those prints draw a smaller crowd and a different quiet. And on those nights, when I count the heads in the grey light off the screen, I get one more than the tickets say. The first time it happened, I counted 4 times, and then walked the aisle with a flashlight after the credits, feeling foolish. 41 tickets, 42 heads, and when the house lights came up, 41 people putting on their coats. Nobody passed me on the stairs, and the exit doors were still barred from the inside. That night, I read the green notebook past the practical pages, into the parts I had only skimmed. Mr. Ambrose had kept counts of his own, in neat columns, going back to the 50s. Tickets on the left, heads on the right, and a handful of Saturdays a year, always on the old prints. The right column runs one high. Next to those rows, there is no worried word, only a small check mark, like a number agreeing with a different ledger. I can say honestly that none of this has ever frightened me much. The Vesper at 1 in the morning is a warm place, full of small sounds that all have explanations, and one that does not. The furnace knocks, the marquee buzzes, the reels turn, and somewhere in the third row there is a listener the till has no line for. The regulars never go near that seat. A woman who has come to the midnight show for 30 years told me at the candy counter that the third row belongs to the house. She said it the way a person says the mail comes at noon. The basement runs deeper than the building has any right to, and the film vault is only the front room of it. Behind the vault is a storeroom that stayed locked for my whole 6 years because the key was lost and nobody missed it. Last winter, a pipe fitter opened a wall and found the key inside, hanging on a nail 6 inches from its own lock. Inside the storeroom were the things a theatre sheds and cannot throw away. Rolled posters gone soft as cloth, a dented popcorn kettle, boxes of letters for a marquee replaced twice since. And at the back, on a shelf by itself, sat one film can with no tape and no label, only a single word scratched into the lid. The word was opening. I brought it up to the booth on a Tuesday with the theatre dark, because some things you do not do with an audience in the house. The reel inside was short, 10 minutes at the most, and the leader was brittle, so I wound it through my fingers first, feeling for tears. Then I laced it into the projector, dimmed the booth, and sent it down to the screen. There was no title card. The picture opened on the front of the Vesper with the marquee lit for the first time, the paint so new it shone pale even in black and white. A crowd in hats filled the sidewalk, a man in a sash cut a ribbon, and everyone poured past the camera smiling. Whoever held the camera followed them inside, down the center aisle, and then turned to face the house. The seats were filling the way a field fills with birds, in gusts and settlings. The lens held still for a long moment on all those faces, rows and rows of them, waiting for the first picture that would ever play in that room. And in the third row, 7th seat from the aisle, sat a young man in shirt sleeves, holding his cap in both hands, looking up at the light like everyone else. I knew the face, though it took me a moment to place it, because I had only ever seen it old. In our lobby hangs a photograph of a heavyset man standing between these same 2 projectors, sleeves rolled, hands dark with machine oil. The brass plate under it reads Elias Thorne, first projectionist of the Vesper, the man who built this booth in the winter before the theatre opened. Near the back of the green notebook there are 3 pages about him, written like a debt being paid. Thorne ran the machines at the old opera house on the square for 30 years, back when the Vesper was not even a drawing. When the new theatre went up, he chose every part of the booth himself, the angles, the vents, the port windows, and he threaded the first test reel with his own hands. 8 days before opening night, in the middle of an ordinary supper, he died. The notebook does not dress it up. It says the first public show in this house was run by a nervous substitute, and that the booth behaved perfectly because Thorne had left nothing to chance. It says the owner held one seat back on opening night, 3rd row, 7th from the aisle, for the man who never got to watch anything here. And it says the seat has been kept ever since, because a promise made to a builder is cheap to keep and heavy to break. The ribbon in that little reel was cut more than a week after his funeral. But there he sat, in the seat they were holding for him, 30 years younger than his photograph, patient as anybody waiting for a show. I ran the reel twice more, and the arithmetic never improved, and he was there in every pass. The reel ends before the picture starts. The last frames are the house lights beginning their slow fade, all those faces lifting together, and then the film runs out into white. The can lives on its shelf now, and I wrote the word opening into the notebook, so the next projectionist will not need a pipe fitter to find it. I never told the ushers or the owner, because the 3rd row already belongs to the house, and everyone treats it right without knowing why. But the midnight shows feel different to me now, as a room feels different once you learn who built it. On film nights, I come in early, walk the aisle, and rest my hand on the back of C7, as you might touch the doorframe of a house you love. Then I climb the stairs and thread the first reel exactly as Thorne decided it should be done, 90 years ago, in a room he measured himself. Last month the can from the basement was an old one, a black and white picture from before the war, scratched like a pond under hail. 62 tickets on a cold night, which is fine business for us at midnight. At the first quiet scene, I leaned to the port window and counted, and then counted again, because numbers like to be sure. 63. Down in the 3rd row, in the grey wash off the screen, someone sat where no ticket had been sold, still and easy, facing the light. I did not take the flashlight down. I watched my cue marks and made the changeover so clean that nobody below felt the seam. That is the whole of my job, and it was the whole of his. The picture ran with the rain sound underneath it, and the Vesper held all of us, as it has held every audience since the ribbon. If the count runs one high on the old prince, the house is only keeping the owner's promise, and I will not argue with a ledger older than my grandmother. The reels turn, the little window glows, and 3 rows from the screen, an empty seat is not quite empty, and no harm has ever come of it. He waited a long time for opening night. As far as this house is concerned, every Saturday at midnight is still opening night, and the seat is his for as long as he wants it.